Professor Enase Okonedo, FCA, is a distinguished academic leader and seasoned corporate board member currently serving as the Vice Chancellor of Pan Atlantic University in Lagos, Nigeria. With a remarkable tenure as the Dean of Lagos Business School, LBS, from July 2009 to December 2020, she steered the institution to global recognition by attaining prestigious accreditations and rankings. Her influence extends beyond academia, as evidenced by her extensive involvement in top global management organizations. She has contributed her expertise to boards such as the Graduate Management Admission Council, the Global Business School Network, and the United Nations Principles of Responsible Management Education. Notably, she has held leadership positions including Secretary-Treasurer at AACSB International and Chairperson of the Association of African Business Schools. Currently, she holds pivotal roles on the boards of EcoBank Transactional Incorporated and ATC Nigeria Wireless Infrastructure, where she serves as chairperson. A public speaker and author, Professor Okonedo shares her insights on various platforms and has authored 2 seminal books: The Determinants of Stock Buying Behavior of the Individual Investor in the Nigeria Equity Market in 2011, and The Art of Decision Making, a Guide to Executive Decision Making in Africa in 2020. On this week's episode of Ellevate, we have Professor Enase Okonedo.
My name is Professor Enase Okonedo. I'm Vice Chancellor of Pan Atlantic University, Lagos, Nigeria. I wish I could tell you that pursuing a career in academic was deliberate. It wasn't at all deliberate. I had no aspirations to become an academic. People had always said to me that I teach, but even then that I teach well when I was in school. But even then, I never thought that I would become an academic. I actually began my career as a banker. So the first 7 to 8 years of my life were spent in banking. I worked in the financial boutique, and then I worked in the securities organization. And then sometime towards the 90s, about the 90s, the mid-90s, there was a liberalization of the banking sector in Nigeria. And there became a proliferation of banks across the country. And for some reason, I didn't find banking as interesting as when I first joined. When I first joined, it was still long-term finance. We were structuring deals. It was all very exciting, And then by the time there became a plethora of banks, what then happened was that it then became a game of, look for deposits and then fix the deposit somewhere. And I got bored. And I thought that I would go on to something else, but I wasn't sure what. And the reason why I wasn't sure what I was going to move on to was because I was trained as an accountant. My first degree was in accounting. I had gone on to qualify as an accountant, but I'd only ever worked as a banker. And here was I being tired of banking, wanting to make a change, but really not feeling equipped for anything else. Being an accountant was out of the question because when I first left school, at that time, I think I was going after the money. So when I first left school, it was, do you go into banking or do you go and pursue a profession as an accountant? And at that time, if you went into banking, your pay starting off was like 5 times what it was to pay as an accountant. For me, it was a no-brainer. I was young, in my early 20s. I went for the money. And here was I now at a crossroads of my career. I'm not sure exactly what to do. So I thought, okay, let me broaden my horizon. Let me go and do an MBA degree. And then that would sort of broaden my horizon, give me an inkling as to what it is that I wanted to do, and then possibly equip me with the skills that I felt that I needed to go on to do whatever it was that I eventually decided that I was going to do. And therefore, I put in my letter of resignation at the bank I was working in then, sometime about March, and I was due to begin the MBA in September. And at that time, Lagos Business School was a relatively young school, and there used to be this very catchy adverts in the Nigerian newspapers. It was still mainly traditional media then. And, all these catchy adverts just sort of putting out the exciting seminars they were doing. So my interest had been piqued by Lagos Business School, and I used to look to the adverts just to see what's going on. And then for courses, actually. And then one day I looked, and then there was a vacancy. I thought, oh, that's interesting. Let me go along and see what it was. But they were looking for people to come in as research assistants and work for a 1-year period. Remember, I had like 7 or 8 months free, and I thought, okay, let me go and see. Maybe this will be a good way to kill time. But when I got there, I just didn't drop my letter. I asked to see the person in charge. And I said to him, well, I'm interested in this role. He said, okay, so what do you bring? I told him, he said, you're overqualified. I said, so what's your problem with that? He said, no, we're looking for fresh graduates. I said, yes, but why? He said, because here we are, it's a 1 year job. We just want fresh graduates to come. Maybe they have interest. I somehow persuaded him that, he shouldn't bother about my career aspirations where I was going to. I was ready to do this job. And therefore I interviewed, and then I came in for a 1 year contract. But it was interesting. I think a combination of factors led me to becoming an academic. Because in the year that I joined the business school, I was a research associate, assistant, and then an associate. And I was working with Dr. Christopher Kolade, who is well known in Nigerian corporate world, and at some point in time was Nigerian ambassador to the UK. But he was at the time the CEO and chairman of Cadbury Nigeria. So he was only at Lagos Business School twice a week. So it meant that, you remember that I left my career because I was bored. And here I'd come, and then my boss was only here twice a week. The other 3 days, he was at Cadbury, so he would come and do his lectures. So I had a lot of time on my hands. And what I used to do, being bored, was to go and harass all the faculty. Do you have anything I can help you with? Is there something I can do for you? And I started writing case studies, getting into research, and 6 months after I joined as a research associate, they then said to me, you know what? There's a full-time job available in the finance faculty. Would you be interested? Notes that I didn't know where I was going to. I thought I was going to do an MBA. And I thought, okay, I better try it out. I've stayed 30 years now at the business school, at the university, just been there and then, just going. So yeah, that's how I became an academic. And as time went on, I found it very interesting. If you talk to the students in my early days, I sort of had a reputation of harassing people in class. I thought I was trying to teach them finance, but it was all very exciting. I really have enjoyed the journey so far. Sitting on several global boards gave me the opportunity. First of all, it exposes you to different cultures and different styles of decision making. So you get to understand how are decisions made in Africa. Even then, in Africa, the differences between how we make decisions in the western part of Africa as opposed to how we make decisions in the southern part of Africa. And sitting on several boards that have, a mixture of people from different cultures, different climes, you get to, if you are smart and wise, you get to observe, you get to learn, and you get to understand how people arrive at decisions, which is all very good because in today's world, as you know, we have multicultural teams, we have to work across borders. So just sort of understanding what drives this person, what are the things they think about, how do they approach decisions has been helpful. The second is that sitting on boards, whether of global management organizations, or it gives you deep insights into the particular industry. So again, if you're someone who likes to learn and who likes to deepen the knowledge of not only styles of decision making, of problem solving, of management, but also give you deep insights into industry, it's really very practical training experience. It's helped me in a number of ways. I learn a lot by observing. I learn the styles by which people conduct meetings. I learn how people speak up at meetings. I learn how people make their points, how they persuade. There's just so much learning that comes there. So it's really helped me a lot in my journey so far, just being exposed to different boards globally or locally. I would like to share something that happened in my primary engagement, which is as at that time Dean of Lagos Business School. It was at the start of the COVID pandemic. We had seen it coming, so we were prepared. As part of my role, I usually am a prolific speaker. So, I speak at conferences and speak at fora all over. And fortuitously, at the start of that year, I had been it was at the start of 2020 in January. I had a speaking engagement in Italy, and I had gone to Italy. I remember I was due to leave on February 15th, which was like a Saturday. And then COVID broke out just before then. And I managed to get one of the last flights out, and, it was all closed. And at that time, the world hadn't really known this COVID. It had started coming from maybe the previous year, the last quarter, but really wasn't known. And then I'd gone on to Egypt, I think. And then, anyway, long story short, I'd gone to like 3 countries in succession, and each place I had gone to, COVID had just sort of followed me. So I sort of came back to Nigeria and I said, you know what, guys, this thing is going to come here sooner than later because it's just going everywhere. So let's be prepared. Prior to that, we had actually been, I like to say, flirting with technology at the business school because with all business educators, we knew that technology is going to have a profound impact on how it is that we educate, where and how. And therefore, we had started preparing for that. Not at all that anybody knew that COVID was going to happen. And therefore, we have thought, let's get prepared. And what's going to be the threshold by which we decide we're going to move things online? And we had it all clear to say, you know what, once the government declares 5 cases in Nigeria, we shut down. It was what I had seen happening. And like I said, I learned a lot. And we had seemingly informed the students that this was what was going to happen. And therefore, when we hit the threshold of 5 as a nation, we decided to just move swiftly to online without missing a beat. And we were congratulating ourselves that, you know what, it had gone very well. Until after a few weeks of the students being at home, the students came up and thought, you know what, we paid our school fees. You're giving us courses online. Why? The school fees we paid were for physical, so they started demanding a refund. Now, this wasn't peculiar to Lagos Business School. It was happening at campuses all over. But it was pretty challenging because we were saying, you know what, our costs are fixed. The delivering of the lecture, in fact, the technology, but then the students were adamant. And it took a lot to be able to manage that situation. Now, I found it challenging in several respects. On the one hand, we're interested in the success of every student, so therefore we want to ensure that they're well educated. Faculty were still struggling to become adept at delivering lectures through using technology. Remember, it was the early days, so I had that on the other hand. At the same time that people are saying, give me back my money, and I say, I'm giving you value, the faculty are maybe not completely up to speed or all, at the same level of trying to do that. We had to contend with technology and the disruptions that come about because of the challenges of infrastructure in Nigeria and ensuring that we keep that running. And then there's also the staff who, just being confronted with the whole thing of COVID, people were falling ill. It was a most challenging period. I learned a lot of things from that experience. First of all, was how to better manage stakeholders, so stakeholder management, stakeholder mapping, stakeholder management. But beyond that, it also gave me an insight on the type of manager that I really want on my team. Because for some, when confronted with crisis, they freeze. They're just sort of frozen into inertia and they just can't move because of fear. They're paralyzed more or less in terms of action. And then there are the others that seemed as though they were born for crisis. Immediately this happened, they just jump on it and say, you know what do we do? And then there are the others that say, well, you know what, let's wait, let's study. Let's see what it is that's going to happen. So much as we're able to manage it, it also gave me an insight into the characteristics and the type of managers that I would like to have on my team in today's world that's prone to crisis. The first thing that I say to females is that you need to be yourself. Somehow or the other, I don't know whether or not we've just sort of learned leadership and leadership styles from males because they seem to be at the forefront of leadership. And so sometimes I see that when women get into leadership positions, they try and act like alpha males, for instance, okay? And I say, but that's not who we are. We bring different skills, we bring different qualities to the table, and therefore be yourself. The second advice that I give is that as a leader, one must be open to learning. I mean, I can read out the qualities of leaders, or for female leaders in particular, it's be yourself. Don't be so quick to say, you know what, I must act confident, which may be deemed aggressive. I must act, and there's nothing wrong at all. Indeed, I do suggest to people that you must be confident, but then in being confident, that you must be cognizant of the fact that you can't be aggressive. The other thing is that, unfortunately, in today's world, we face microaggressions because there are people who just don't see women as, worthy of having a seat on the table. Let me put it that way. So there's always a slight, a microaggression, something that's just supposed to remind you that, you know what, you're on this table only because you're a woman, which is not the case. And therefore, I say in any position that you find yourself in, be sure that you're worth your onions, which means that competence. You can't trade that out. So you need to prepare and over-prepare for what it is that you're faced with today and what it is that's going to come. And then learn not to sweat the small stuff. There are things that you will overlook. There are things that, of course, if it's in your face, of course, you have to speak up. But then there are more important things to focus on, like the business of the day, than who slighted you and spoke when you were speaking up, or, just get on with the business of the day. Do it, but do it being a woman. A colleague of mine, a senior colleague of mine, a couple of years ago at the business school, was talking about, those female things and everything. So I said, yeah, but you're talking to a female. He said, oh, no, but you're not female. I was a bit slightly offended. I thought, I'm female. I look female. But really, he then had to explain himself. He said, no, what I mean is that you don't think like a female. So you don't sweat the small stuff all the things that people feel that are, women trying to prove themselves by being overly aggressive and things. No, I say to women, you know what? What are the qualities that are characteristic of a feminine person? It's that you are empathetic, you're caring, you think, which does not mean that you are a softie. It just means that even when making hard decisions, there's a human face that you put to it more than would happen if you had, and I'm not saying all male bosses or leaders are, just very hard, but they're just certain things that we bring in because we have this mothering and nurturing instinct that we bring to the table. Be yourself and just do that. So, fortunately, I haven't had anyone, and I think that I'm pretty open, so people feel free to tell me exactly what they think. And even if they don't, I do invite that to happen to say, "Oh no, tell me what where can I improve? What can I do?" And no one has ever said to me, "You know what, you behave like the stereotypical female boss." But I guess I had good role models to follow. Usually, I'm happy that you haven't asked me the question of how do you balance things. How do you balance? Because I think they never ask the males anyway. But the truth is that just given the roles that we play, especially as African women, we have to balance a whole lot more. And sometimes people feel that, you know what, they ask the question or they feel you really can't have it all. So if I aspire to be career minded or to pursue a profession, there's a trade off. At periods in your life, there will be a trade off. But I want people to think that you can work in the home, you can work outside the home. The important thing is that you're contributing and you're adding value to what's going on. So platforms such as, are presented to me when I have to speak, give an opportunity, I hope, to inspire people to know that, you know what, you can make a difference. So that's the first. The second is that I like to speak a lot to young people and young ladies because I need to sort of inspire them to dream. I dream big and I encourage people to dream big, to say, you know what, the battle is won in your mind, first of all, before you win it physically. And therefore, I try and just sort of ignite that hope in them, that spark in them to say, you know what, believe in yourself that you can do it. Because there's just too many things against you in the world that tell you, you can't do it, you can only get so far and things. And then, I point to examples of successful women and I say to them, you can do it, you can do it well. So that's the way that I try and inspire people to really do more and become more. Maybe I should go back. The people who went to school with me, they're surprised that I ended up in academic. So I sort of explained to you my formal professional track. What I didn't explain to you, or perhaps what didn't come out in the interview, was that when I left school, I was a trader. So I did everything. Maybe I should call myself an entrepreneur, okay? Because in the early days, even when I was a youth corper, I used to travel to Aba and Onitsha and buy fabrics and come and sell in Lagos. My father was my first customer, buying for people that he would give out things to. He gave me the seed capital. At some point in my life, I was a trader. At some point in time, I was importing things into Nigeria. So I tell people that the only thing that I didn't do was to sell ice block and pure water. And it's not because I didn't want to do. There was no pure water then. There was ice block. But when I went to the company, Tower Aluminium, then I can't forget, to buy the containers, they didn't have them in stock. That's why I didn't do ice block. So if I wasn't, and I'm not sure how this is going to come out in the interview, however, if I didn't do this, people thought that by now I would have been a very big trader. Now, when I look at my life now, I'm wondering, how would that have happened? But that's a completely different tangent. But yeah, maybe that's what I would have been doing. So to the women out there, I would say dream. Dream big. Don't kill those dreams. Don't let the world kill your dreams. Work at it. You will get there.